Cancer Lagna, Blank Chart Predictions, Part 1. House-based issues and lifelong themes, houses 1 to 4. First house, Cancer itself, soft interior behind a protective shell. Cancer rising brings the moon's fluid, nurturing, and emotionally driven energy into the ascendant. Like the crab, Cancer natives have a sensitive core masked by a strong outer persona. Their emotional nature is deep, intuitive, and maternal, but often hidden beneath moodiness or protectiveness. Since the moon is both the Lagna lord and significator of emotions, there is a tendency to process the world through feelings rather than logic. However, when the moon is afflicted or placed in difficult signs like Scorpio or Capricorn, the native may feel emotionally overwhelmed or ungrounded. This house activates at ages 1, 13, 25, 37, often marking emotional identity crises or reorientation through maternal or domestic influences. Second house, Leo, proud lineage and commanding speech. Leo in the second house brings the sun's authoritative and radiant energy into the realm of family, speech, and wealth. Cancer natives may take great pride in their family legacy and often speak with warmth, gravity, or dramatic flair. However, the sun's natural individualism may create ego tensions within the family or difficulties around sharing control of inherited resources. Since the second house is also linked to food and values, this placement can create refined tastes and strong vocal opinions. The native may earn through authoritative roles or creative expression. Activation years 2, 14, 26, 38 bring value shifts, recognition through speech, or intense family karma. Third house, Virgo, overthinking instincts and quiet, tactical communication. Virgo in the third house brings Mercury's analytical and detail-oriented nature into communication, courage, and skills. For Cancer Lagna, this results in quiet, thoughtful speech and calculated self-expression. However, Mercury is also lord of the 12th house, loss, and its dual rulership means intellect often becomes clouded by emotion, especially in times of stress or confusion. The mind tends to overanalyze interactions, leading to delays in action or second-guessing personal initiative. This placement also makes friendships and sibling relationships mentally stimulating but emotionally unstable. Activation years 3, 15, 27, 39 highlight important phases in learning, media work, and assertion of voice. Fourth house, Libra. Love of home, aesthetic shelter, and emotional dependency. Libra in the fourth house brings Venus's grace and harmony into the domain of home, emotional roots, and the mother. Cancer natives often have a strong attachment to their home space and may design it to be aesthetically pleasing and emotionally soothing. Venus here, however, also rules the 11th house, which connects domestic life with social expectations, sometimes causing tension between private contentment and public approval. If Venus is afflicted, there may be emotional dependence on material beauty or relationships for comfort. Activation years 4, 16, 28, 40 bring domestic changes, deep emotional reflection, or shifts in the foundation of one's psychological security. Cancer Lagna, Blank Chart Predictions, Part 2. House-based issues and lifelong themes, houses 5 to 8. Fifth house, Scorpio, emotional intensity in children and creativity. Scorpio in the fifth house introduces Mars and Ketu's deep transformative energy into the realms of children, creativity, and romance. This is a complex placement for Cancer Lagna. Mars, the fifth lord, is debilitated in Cancer, the first house, and the moon, Lagna lord, is debilitated in Scorpio, the sign of the fifth house. This reciprocal debilitation makes matters of children and creative fulfillment highly sensitive. The native may feel deeply about children but face disappointment, delay, or even loss in this area. Romantic experiences tend to be intense and karmic, often laced with emotional upheaval. However, it also gives a piercing intellect and spiritual insight when channeled inward. Activation years 5, 17, 29, 41 often bring emotional catharsis through creative or parental experiences or crisis-driven transformation in romantic matters. Sixth house, Sagittarius, the dual force of enemies and philosophy. Sagittarius in the sixth house brings Jupiter's expansive but idealistic nature into conflict-prone terrain. Enemies, illness, debt, and routine service. Jupiter rules both the 6th and 9th houses for Cancer Lagna, creating a rare blend of Dusthana, trouble, and Trikona, grace. This dual rulership leads to situations where adversaries may turn into allies, or spiritual ideals must be tested through opposition. The native may face chronic health conditions or legal troubles, especially if Jupiter is weak. Yet they may also find growth through navigating these hardships, particularly in fields like law, teaching, or healthcare. Activation years 6, 18, 30, 42 test inner ethics through real-world struggles, particularly in the workplace or with karmic debts. 7th house, Capricorn, private marriages and delayed partnerships. Capricorn in the 7th house places Saturn in charge of relationships, marriage, and public partnerships. Cancer natives often marry later in life or experience delays, restrictions, or karmic obstacles in committed relationships. Saturn is a secretive Gra and also rules the 8th house, creating a deep blending of secrecy, emotional suppression, and relationship karma. These natives often keep their marriages private, and their partnerships may involve responsibility, chronic issues, or even tragedy, as the 7th house is a Maraka and the 8th a house of death. Activation years 7, 19, and 31, 43 often coincide with marriage, divorce, or pivotal confrontations in interpersonal dynamics. 8th house, Aquarius. Detached depth and emotional puzzles. Aquarius in the 8th house adds Saturn's long-term realism and Rahu's eccentricity to the house of secrets, transformation, and hidden power. For Cancer Lagna, this brings a paradox. Deep emotional sensitivity, Moon, meets intellectual detachment and mental chaos, Aquarius plus Rahu. The native may experience sudden disruptions, spiritual awakenings, or taboo interests, often hidden beneath a calm surface. Inheritance, sexuality, or emotional crises may unfold in unexpected ways. Emotional wounds often relate to being misunderstood or detached from emotional expression. Activation years 8, 20, 32, 44 bring unpredictable but karmically significant changes, often forcing surrender, healing, or rebirth. Cancer Lagna, Blank Chart Predictions, Part 3. House-based issues and lifelong themes. Houses 9 to 12. 9th house, Pisces, emotional faith, and idealistic gurus. Pisces in the 9th house brings Jupiter's spiritual, watery energy into the domain of higher wisdom, dharma, long-distance travel, and father figures. For Cancer Lagna, this is a supportive placement, as Jupiter is a friend to the moon and brings emotional expansion through spiritual belief, pilgrimage, or sacred learning. However, since Jupiter also rules the 6th house, the native spiritual growth often arises through hardship or health-related suffering. There may be a strong draw toward devotional paths, but these are frequently obstructed by daily obligations or karmic debts. Activation years 9, 21, 33, 45 bring philosophical reorientation, long journeys, or conflicts between faith and real-world demands. 10th house, Aries, dynamic drive, emotional willpower, and career struggles. Aries in the 10th house infuses career, karma, and public image with Mars's assertive, action-oriented energy. Mars, being the 10th lord, is also the 5th lord and signifies a piercing intellect. However, Mars is debilitated in Cancer, the Ascendant, creating friction between internal emotional vulnerability and the outward demand for action and authority. This often results in dynamic ambition, but emotional instability in public roles. The native may be drawn to fast-paced professions, military, law enforcement, entrepreneurship, but must guard against burnout or emotional reaction in leadership. Activation years 10, 22, 34, 46 typically bring turning points in profession, visibility, or role in society, often triggered by the need to prove oneself. 11th house, Taurus, comfort in community and emotional gains. Taurus in the 11th house brings Venus's stabilizing and pleasure-seeking qualities into the realm of gains, networks, and long-term desires. Since Venus also rules the 4th house, Cancer Lagna natives often link emotional security with material comfort and social approval. Friends may be nurturing, artistic, or sensually oriented, and gains can come through beauty, design, food, or real estate. However, emotional fluctuation due to the moon makes these relationships inconsistent. If Venus is strong, the native enjoys supportive friendships and financial growth through social groups. Activation years 11, 23, 35, 47 bring financial rewards, social milestones, or sudden shifts in friendships and goals. 12th house, Gemini, mental dissolution and intellectually driven isolation. Gemini in the 12th house places Mercury, the planet of logic and intellect, in the domain of subconscious, foreign lands, and spiritual letting go. Since Mercury also rules the third house, the native's mental functions are deeply linked with private thoughts, hidden worries, or sleep disturbances. In times of crisis, this placement often causes the intellect to become clouded by emotion, especially since Mercury, logic, and Moon, emotion, are not friendly. There is often a tendency to overthink spiritual matters or retreat into intellectualization as a defense against emotional vulnerability. Activation years 12, 24, 36, 48 bring karmic endings, spiritual introspection, foreign travel, or psychic burnout that must be balanced through conscious surrender. Scorpio Lagna Blank Chart Predictions Part 1. House-based issues and lifelong themes. Houses 1 to 4. First house, Scorpio itself, the penetrating will and emotional armor. Scorpio rising places Mars, the fiery, assertive, and strategic Graha, as the Lagna Lord, infusing the native with intensity, willpower, secrecy, and emotional depth. These individuals possess a strong outer shell and an impenetrable inner resolve, much like the Scorpion's exoskeleton. They are not easily swayed, often rigid in their principles, and function best when working with power, transformation, or secrecy. Mars gives them stamina, a deep sense of survival, and a tendency to rebel against norms. However, with the Moon debilitated in this Lagna, and also ruling the ninth house of Dharma, the personality can become emotionally conflicted, resistant to external guidance, or spiritually disillusioned. Activation years 1, 13, 25, 37 often trigger themes of identity crisis, power assertion, emotional exposure, or intense psychological transformation. Second house, Sagittarius, moral speech and belief-driven values. Sagittarius in the second house brings Jupiter's expansive and ethical tone into matters of speech, food, family, and wealth. Scorpio natives tend to speak with conviction and prefer conversations rooted in ideals, philosophy, or spiritual values. However, since Jupiter owns the second and fifth houses, the native often projects their beliefs into family structures, potentially causing ideological disagreements. Their sense of wealth and value is guided more by principle than materialism, though indulgence can still arise. When afflicted, this placement leads to dogmatic speech, financial carelessness, or moral superiority. Activation years 2, 14, 26, 38 spotlight family legacies, teaching roles, or tension between ethics and income. Third house, Capricorn, silent endurance and strategic skill building. Capricorn in the third house introduces Saturn's reserved, slow, and disciplined nature into communication, courage, and sibling relationships. Scorpio Lagna natives prefer measured speech, think before they act, and develop skills quietly over time. There may be friction or distance with siblings, especially younger ones, due to Saturn's cold nature and its mutual enmity with Mars. Since Saturn is also the fourth lord, communication can be emotionally burdened by family expectations or emotional repression. This combination builds resilience, but may cause emotional disconnection from peers. Activation years 3, 15, 27, 39 bring turning points in expression, education, or sibling dynamics that involve restraint or long-term planning. Fourth house, Aquarius, detached roots and mentalized emotions. Aquarius in the fourth house brings Saturn and Rahu's futuristic, impersonal, and system-oriented energy into matters of home, emotional foundation, and mother. Scorpio natives may come from homes that were unconventional, emotionally distant, or focused more on survival than affection. This often leads to a guarded emotional nature and difficulty in establishing lasting domestic peace. Saturn, the fourth lord, being inimical to Mars, Lagna lord, creates tension in how the native processes emotional safety, often leading to internal conflict between vulnerability and control. If Saturn is strong, the native may find peace through institutional roles or humanitarian ideals. Activation years 4, 16, 28, 40 typically reveal psychological restructuring, home shifts, or karmic resolution with maternal figures or homeland. Scorpio Lagna Blank Chart Predictions, House-based issues and lifelong themes, houses 5 to 8. Fifth house, Pisces, intuitive creativity and emotional entanglement with children. Pisces in the fifth house brings Jupiter's expansive, emotional, and mystical energy into creativity, children, romance, and intelligence. Scorpio Lagna individuals are naturally drawn to artistic, poetic, or spiritual expression and often have a dreamy, imaginative, romantic life. With Jupiter ruling both the second and fifth houses, there is a strong link between values and offspring, but this can also bring idealism or emotional overdependence in love or parenting. The native may project fantasies onto children or lovers and feel deeply wounded by disappointment. This placement supports creative intelligence, especially in music, storytelling, or healing. Activation years 5, 17, 29, 41 mark key developments in romantic destiny, artistic production, or karmic events with children or students. Sixth house, Aries, combat in daily life and medical inclination. Aries in the sixth house places Mars, Scorpio's own Lagna lord, into a highly active domain of competition, conflict, and illness. This is a potent placement, giving the native formidable strength in crisis and the capacity to overcome obstacles with precision. Scorpio Lagna natives often have an interest in surgery, medicine, or military roles, as Mars rules both the first, identity, and sixth, cutting disease houses. There's a fighter's mentality in handling daily tasks and a tendency toward sharp reactions when threatened. Health issues may involve head injuries or inflammatory conditions. This Mars-Mars loop intensifies survival instincts, but can create burnout or chronic battle mentality. Activation years 6, 18, 30, 42 often bring legal fights, health events requiring intervention, or power dynamics in the workplace. Seventh house, Taurus, sensual partnerships and power struggles in marriage. Taurus in the seventh house brings Venus's sensual, stabilizing energy into the realm of marriage, contracts, and one-on-one dynamics. For Scorpio Lagna, this creates a classic Mars-Venus polarity. Mars rules the self, Venus rules the other. This often results in passionate but stormy relationships where the native may attempt to dominate or suppress their partner's individuality. Venus here also rules the 12th house, loss, bed pleasures, which adds karmic challenges to marital life, including intimacy complications, emotional dependencies, or secret affairs. Partnerships may start passionately, but often require great emotional maturity to sustain. Activation years 7, 19, 31, 43 bring pivotal choices in marriage, legal alliances, or karmic reckonings through others. Eighth house, Gemini, mental obsession and a search for hidden knowledge. Gemini in the eighth house introduces Mercury's fast, flexible, and curious energy into the domain of death, transformation, secrecy, and shared resources. For Scorpio Lagna, this creates a deeply analytical yet psychologically restless mind, always probing, dissecting, and uncovering what lies beneath. There is a fascination with occult, esoteric knowledge, and a strong inner need to understand life's mysteries. However, Mercury being a neutral to Mars and ruling both the 8th and 11th houses may bring instability in gains and volatility in deep emotional commitments. The native may experience sudden inheritances, mental turbulence, or power struggles over shared assets. Activation years 8, 20, 32, 44 bring psychological crises, spiritual rebirth, or shifts in joint finances and karmic legacies. Scorpio Lagna, Blank Chart Predictions, Part 3. House-based issues and lifelong themes, houses 9 to 12. Ninth house, Cancer, emotional dharma and travel disruptions. Cancer in the ninth house places the moon, the most changeable and emotionally reactive graha, as the ruler of dharma, belief systems, father figures, and long-distance travel. For Scorpio Lagna, this brings a personal, emotional tone to faith and higher philosophy. The native may seek nurturing teachers or mother-like mentors, but there is often emotional turbulence in relationships with father figures or gurus. Since the moon is debilitated in Scorpio, the Lagna itself, both spiritual clarity and paternal connection can be weakened. There may also be frequent disruptions during travels or pilgrimages, especially with Mars, Lagna Lord, debilitated in Cancer. Scorpio natives may struggle to stabilize their faith and often prefer experiential learning to dogmatic tradition. Activation years 9, 21, 33, 45 typically bring clashes between belief and emotion or disillusionment that reshapes one's moral compass. Leo, public recognition and egocentric karma. Leo in the 10th house brings the sun, the significator of fame, leadership, and power, into the domain of karma, profession, and public visibility. Scorpio Lagna individuals are deeply ambitious and often gravitate toward roles of influence, government, or leadership. Mars and the Sun are friends, which supports success in competitive careers, especially in fields like law enforcement, military, administration, or medicine. The native carries a strong drive to dominate their field, but may suffer due to ego confrontations or power struggles. Public recognition is earned, but comes at the price of sustained personal sacrifice and discipline. If the Sun is afflicted, career instability may result from arrogance or public fallout. Activation years 10, 22, 34, 46 bring significant professional breakthroughs or public reckonings that define status and legacy. 11th house, Virgo. Strategic gains and analytical friendships. Virgo in the 11th house places Mercury, significator of calculation and skill, as the ruler of long-term gains, ambitions, and social networks. For Scorpio Lagna, this creates a precise, practical approach to achieving goals and a tendency to view friendships through a utility-based lens. The native often aligns with intelligent, service-oriented individuals or groups. Gains come through medicine, research, data analysis, or media. However, since Mercury also rules the 8th house, friends can become karmic triggers or agents of hidden transformation. There's a fine balance between networking for advantage and being drawn into manipulative circles. Activation years 11, 23, 35, 47 mark phases of financial accumulation, network expansion, or revelations about one's deeper motives for connection. 12th house, Libra. Sensual isolation and karmic dissolution through pleasure. Libra in the 12th house brings Venus's refined, relational, and pleasure-seeking nature into the realm of sleep, isolation, foreign lands, and moksha. For Scorpio Lagna, this places sensuality in the subconscious, suggesting that sexual desire, luxury, and aesthetic longing often operate behind the scenes. There may be a karmic pull towards secret relationships, foreign indulgences, or emotional escapism. Since Venus also rules the 7th house of marriage, this placement creates hidden karmas in romantic life, including affairs, emotional debts, or loss through partnerships. If Venus is afflicted, the native may overindulge in sensuality as a way to escape inner turmoil. Activation years 12, 24, 36, 48 mark spiritual retreats, foreign travel, karmic payoffs, or personal surrender into deeper emotional or sensual dimensions. Pisces Lagna, Blank Chart Predictions Part 1. House-based issues and lifelong themes, houses 1 to 4. First house, Pisces itself, the dreamer's shell and the dual soul. Pisces rising brings Jupiter's spiritual, expansive, and benevolent energy to the personality, making the native compassionate, emotional, and innately idealistic. The Pisces symbol, two fish swimming in opposite directions, captures the internal contradiction between worldly responsibility and otherworldly longing. This duality can lead to a fragmented identity, difficulty making decisions, or contradictory ambitions. Jupiter's rulership of both the Lagna and 10th house, karma, adds to the weight of moral responsibility and public role. Venus, however, is the worst graha for Pisces Lagna, ruling both the 3rd, speech, siblings, and 8th, loss, secrecy, houses. And being exalted in the 1st, it becomes a malefic in disguise, causing trouble in relationships or exaggerated indulgence, especially in love or beauty. Activation years 1, 13, 25, 37 trigger deep spiritual reshaping, identity conflicts, and the need to reconcile opposing drives. Second house, Aries, forceful speech and survival-oriented values. Aries in the 2nd house places Mars in charge of family speech and accumulated wealth. For Pisces Lagna, this lends energy, passion, and sometimes bluntness to communication. While this can empower public speech or entrepreneurial ventures, it can also cause verbal aggression or family conflicts, especially when emotional wounds are triggered. Financially, the native may have an instinctive survival mode, often working through competition or self-effort to secure income. With Mars as a neutral to Jupiter, the relationship here can be productive, but requires restraint. There's also a tendency to overspend or act impulsively with money. Activation years 2, 14, 26, 38 highlight themes of assertive self-expression, karmic family interactions, and developing a secure value system. Third house, Taurus, soft-spoken creativity and artistic siblings. Taurus in the 3rd house brings Venus's artistic, sensual, and steady energy into the domain of communication, skills, and siblings. For Pisces Lagna, this gives a natural ability in music, art, and gentle self-expression, Yet the same Venus that rules the 3rd and 8th houses becomes a problematic force. The native may experience karmic entanglements with siblings or hidden rivalries, especially if Venus is exalted in the Lagna. While creative writing or aesthetics may be strong, there can also be manipulative tendencies or confused sibling boundaries. Communication is charming but may lack clarity when emotionally clouded. Activation years 3, 15, 27, 39 bring changes in skill development, sibling karma, or artistic pursuits with subtle emotional undercurrents. 4th house, Gemini, intellectual homes and restless foundations. Gemini in the 4th house brings Mercury's quick, logical, and mentally active energy into the realm of home, mother, and emotional stability. Mercury, as the 4th lord, is debilitated in Pisces, which can create emotional unrest, a scattered home environment, or instability in education. The native may be brilliant, but feel rootless, or intellectualize emotions as a way to avoid processing them. Instability at home or in childhood may lead to frequent moves or a feeling of being emotionally unanchored. This placement also introduces the potential for dual homes or multiple mother figures. Activation years 4, 16, 28, 40 bring transformations in living environment, family relationships, or emotional realignment through academic or philosophical shifts. Pisces Lagna, Blank Chart Predictions Part 2. House-based issues and lifelong themes, houses 5 to 8. 5th house, Cancer, emotional creativity and nurturing children. Cancer in the 5th house places the moon in charge of intelligence, children, romance, and creativity. For Pisces Lagna, this is a highly favorable placement. The moon, a friend of Jupiter, Lagna Lord, brings emotional depth, imagination, and poetic sensitivity into love and learning. Jupiter is exalted in Cancer, making the 5th house a powerful zone for wisdom, intuition, and education. The native may be a gifted teacher, counselor, or artist, particularly in emotionally expressive mediums like poetry or music. Children are usually a source of pride and joy, though emotional overattachment or overprotection is possible. With the moon's changeability, creative highs may alternate with phases of withdrawal. Activation years 5, 17, 29, 41 mark major developments in romance, childbirth, intellectual pursuits, or spiritual transmission through teaching or parenting. 6th house, Leo, noble enemies and ego-driven conflict. Leo in the 6th house places the sun as lord of daily work, health, debts, and adversaries. For Pisces Lagna, this makes challenges a matter of pride. Conflicts are often tied to ego clashes, and enemies are frequently powerful, visible, or high-ranking individuals. The sun brings leadership into the realm of service, so the native may rise in authority within medical, military, or administrative domains. Health issues may relate to the heart, heat, or spine. If the sun is well placed, the native earns recognition through daily service or triumph over adversity. If afflicted, pride or stubbornness can worsen conflict. Activation years 6, 18, 30, 42 highlight karmic debts, health awakenings, or confrontations that refine the native's character and force spiritual growth. 7th house, Virgo, practical partnerships and analytical love. Virgo in the 7th house brings Mercury's critical, detail-oriented energy into marriage and partnerships. For Pisces Lagna, this placement often causes relationship challenges, as Mercury, lord of the 7th and 4th, is debilitated in Pisces. This suggests that romantic and domestic life may suffer from intellectual mismatch, criticism, or overanalysis. The native may attract practical but emotionally detached partners, or face duality and confusion in marital matters. The symbol of Pisces, two fish swimming in opposite directions, may manifest here as the potential for two marriages or a pattern of conflicting relational ideals. However, this same configuration can produce profound growth through relationships that challenge one's spiritual ideals. Activation years 7, 19, 31, 43 often bring marriage, divorce, or reevaluation of what partnership truly means on both practical and karmic levels. 8th house, Libra. Hidden pleasures and aesthetic transformations. Libra in the 8th house introduces Venus, the most problematic graha for Pisces Lagna, as ruler of longevity, secrecy, and inner transformation. Since Venus rules both the 3rd and 8th houses, it brings seductive charm, but also karmic entanglements into intimate affairs, inheritance, or hidden emotional patterns. While the native may enjoy art, sexuality, and aesthetics at a deep psychological level, Venus's exaltation in the Lagna can increase indulgence or attachment to pleasure, which may sabotage deeper emotional healing. Partnerships may be complicated by hidden expectations or material desires. On the positive side, this placement can enhance tantric or aesthetic spiritual practices. Activation years 8, 20, 32, 44 bring death rebirth cycles, emotionally, sexually, or financially, forcing the native to transmute lower desires into higher awareness. Pisces Lagna, Blank Chart Predictions, Part 3, House-Based Issues and Lifelong Themes, Houses 9 to 12, Ninth House, Scorpio, Secretive Beliefs and Transformational Faith. Scorpio in the ninth house places Mars, an intense, transformative, and emotionally forceful graha, as the ruler of the Dharma house of higher knowledge, gurus, and long-distance travel. For Pisces Lagna, this creates a deeply private, passionate connection to belief systems. The native may not advertise their faith, but follows their convictions with determination. Mars, being a friend of Jupiter, allows spiritual progress, but this combination often results in crises of faith, strong breaks with tradition, or karmic tensions with father figures or mentors. Travel may be emotionally intense, spiritually transformative, and sometimes forced by necessity. Activation years 9, 21, 33, 45 bring spiritual awakening through adversity, sudden shifts in ideology, or intense experiences with teachers in foreign lands. 10th house, Sagittarius, Dharma-driven careers and public teaching roles. Sagittarius in the 10th house places Jupiter, Lagna Lord, and Karaka for Dharma at the top of the chart in the Karma Sthana. This forms a powerful Raja Yoga, blending personal destiny with professional mission. Pisces natives with this placement are often drawn to teaching, healing, counseling, or public leadership rooted in moral values and philosophy. Since Jupiter rules both the 1st and 10th houses, their professional life and identity are inseparable. They must feel inspired and aligned in their work. If Jupiter is well placed, they become widely respected advisors. If debilitated or afflicted, career choices may suffer from lack of structure or clarity. Activation years 10, 22, 34, 46 bring public recognition, vocational realignment, or expansion of responsibilities tied to higher purpose. 11th house, Capricorn, reserved networks and slow-building gains. Capricorn in the 11th house brings Saturn's cautious, status-oriented energy into the realm of gains, ambitions, and social networks. For Pisces Lagna, this makes progress slow and measured. Rewards are earned through persistence, not luck. The native may have fewer friends, but ones that are loyal and often older or more serious. Group settings may be approached with restraint, and the native may prefer solitary ambition or quiet influence rather than loud popularity. Since Saturn rules both the 11th and 12th houses, gains may alternate with losses, or public life may conflict with spiritual needs. Activation years 11, 23, 35, 47 test material maturity, bring slow but steady achievements, or raise lessons around balancing ambition with inner solitude. 12th house, Aquarius, isolated intelligence and cosmic withdrawal. Aquarius in the 12th house places Saturn and co-ruler Rahu in charge of moksha, foreign lands, sleep, and hidden karmas. Pisces Lagna, already the natural 12th sign, resonates deeply with solitude and spiritual retreat, but Aquarius adds a futuristic, scientific, and often eccentric tone to the native's hidden mind. These individuals may seek escape through abstract thought, research, or unconventional spiritual paths, like astrology or metaphysics. Rahu's co-rulership can bring sudden isolation, mental withdrawal, or unusual dreams. With Saturn ruling both the 11th, gains, and 12th, loss, the native learns that material ambition must eventually yield to detachment. Activation years 12, 24, 36, 48 bring mystical experiences, foreign travel, karmic dissolution, or deep psychological cleansing that reorients the soul toward its eternal path.